Hi, I'm Matt Patterson with the Oklahoman, and today I'm here with Dr. Jennifer DiAgostino. She's the head vet at the Oklahoma City Zoo, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how you guys deal with grief in your job. And I guess I would begin by asking, tell me a little bit about your job. What do you do?
Well, I'm the Director of Veterinary Services at the zoo, which means I'm the head veterinarian and I oversee all of the veterinary care for the entire collection of the zoo. We have, close to 2,000 animals at the Oklahoma City Zoo, so I take care of everything from fish all the way up to the apes and the elephants.
Talk a little bit about some of the challenges with zoo medicine. I know it's not like a band field or a normal vet clinic. It's kind of an interesting thing you guys have to go through a lot.
Yeah, one of the most difficult things that we have to deal with is that all of our patients are wild animals. And so it's a little bit different than, just taking care of your dog or your cat that are domesticated animals. Our animals tend to try to hide their illness. That's what they would do in the wild. So it's very challenging sometimes for us to try to pick up on when they're not feeling well. And then of course we're working with dangerous animals. So it becomes a little bit tricky sometimes. We have to put our animals under anesthesia most of the time to do an examination. So it's a little bit more involved than your typical dog and cat medicine.
And a lot of improv too.
Right, absolutely. There's a lot of species on this planet that we really don't know a whole lot about. So oftentimes we have to take the information that we know about dogs, cats, cows, horses, pigs, and extrapolate that to their wild counterparts and figure out what species they're most related to on what we know more about. We can then extrapolate that and try to figure it out. But we really are learning something new every day.
I know you see a lot of different animals, and some you get more attached to than others, or you have your own individual attachments for whatever reason. Talk a little bit about that, just how the relationships that you develop as a staff with the animals.
The relationships that we develop as veterinary staff is a little bit different than the keeper staff. We certainly get very attached to the animals. We see them throughout their entire lives. I often, take care of animals from the day they're born till the day that they die. And so you really get to know them and you know their personalities and their individuality, and you get really attached. And certainly with our zookeepers, that's even more so. They see that animal every single day, becomes really, part of their family.
As a staff, when you do lose an animal, how do you guys deal with that from a grief standpoint?
It's really variable, and certainly each individual person has their own way of dealing with it. Probably, I would say the most common way that we really handle that is we work together as a team, and we really support each other, and we're able to talk about it, and tell stories and have fond memories of that animal. Every single animal, whether it's a fish, a bird, a reptile, or even a large mammal, is very important to us, and it always affects somebody deeply when those animals die.
And some cases are more challenging than others. You guys recently lost Maily,
right,
a 4-year-old Asian elephant. And I think when we talked before, you mentioned that was one of the most difficult things. Talk a little bit about that and just how difficult that was for you and how you got over it, how you moved past it.
Sure. Losing Maily was definitely the most difficult thing I've ever had to deal with in my career. I always tell people it was the same as losing a family member for me, a human family member. I was there the day she was born. I was there for every milestone in her life. Losing her was an incredible shock to all of us. It was not anything we were expecting, and really, really tragic. I would say it took me a very long time to get over that, and it still affects me, every day. My daily life at the zoo has forever changed because of that incident. The zoo will just not be the same with her not there. But really, you just have to know that I did everything I possibly could for that elephant to try to give her a good life and make her healthy and treat her when she was sick, and unfortunately it just didn't go our way. But we did everything we could, and we gave her the best care for her short life that we possibly could have. And at this point in time now, us with the staff, we really have just such fond memories of her, and we're able to reminisce on the funny things that she did. And she was such a character, and she was a really great big sister, and such an integral part of that herd that she really forever made a huge difference at the Oklahoma City Zoo.
And obviously that's an outcome that you didn't want. But
Right.
talk about some of, maybe if you can remember a couple cases where you really went home that day feeling really good about what
Yeah.
you did. There's some of those that happens more often than not.
Absolutely. I would say the majority of animals that die at the zoo are geriatric, which means that they have certainly, lived to their life expectancy, or even sometimes well past their expected life expectancy. So one of the things I'm really thankful for as a veterinarian is that we do have euthanasia as an option. As animals age and they get older, they get things like arthritis, they get kidney disease and kidney failure, and they lose their eyesight, they can't get around, and if they're in constant pain, we can alleviate that. If we get to a point where we can't make them comfortable on a daily basis, then we certainly consider that quality of life. And if they're not having a good quality of life, we do ultimately pursue euthanasia. And we've had cases, especially one of the ones that sticks out for me is our sable antelope that used to be down on our Antelope Drive. We had those two girls, and they lived into their early 20s, which is probably twice what they ever would have lived in the wild. They maybe would have lived till 10 if they were in the wild. So that was very, very old, and they were so arthritic that you could see that it was just very painful for them to even get up and walk over to get their food every day, and that's really not fair to them. So we were actually very thankful that we were able to end their suffering and give them some relief by providing euthanasia for them.
What's it like when you have an animal that is younger and it might have something that could potentially make its quality of life not great, or maybe cause it to be terminally ill, and you figure out what's wrong and you solve it, and the animal goes on to live a happy life? Is that probably the best part of your job? Or?
Absolutely. That it does happen from time to time. We had Siri, our chimpanzee, is a really good example of that. She did not start life out well at all, but we gave her the best possible chance at our zoo, and we had easily 10 to 12 specialists, human and veterinary, come out to help get her back into good health. Ultimately she ended up having a traumatic incident and lost her arm, and that was just added on to her developmental issues as an infant. But with all of that care that we provided, and we figured out what her problem was with her nutrition, and we were able to solve that, she's now a perfectly normal chimpanzee and is in with the group and will live a completely normal, long life.
Xena, the African wild dog, would be kind of another example of that, right? When she had the pups that she didn't want to take care of.
Right. Yeah. So, so definitely, there are situations where behaviorally our animals are a little bit different. She didn't really know what to do. She'd never seen pups being raised before in her own pack, so she didn't really know what to do. We worked with her, and we figured out kind of what we needed to provide her to make her successful. And with this litter, she's done a fabulous job. She's now a model African wild dog mom. So just by learning from that previous litter and knowing what she needed, we could provide that and then make her successful the next time.
What would you want people to know about your job? What would be the one thing you'd want to tell them?
I think that it's a very exciting and rewarding field, and I think people get that. I mean, when I talk to people on the street and they hear what I do, they think, oh, it's the most fascinating job and it must be the most fun. I always tell people, some days it's a job and some days it's my career. Some days are harder than others, and there are days, when things like Maylee's death happens, it sometimes makes me reconsider what I'm doing, and can I really handle this, and can I really do this? But at the end of the day, this is what I was born to do, and I was meant to take care of animals and when they're sick and make them better, and so you just have to move on and do that. But it truly is a very exciting field. We get to learn something new every day, which is the most exciting thing for me, is we're always learning something new. It can be very frustrating when you don't know what's going on with an animal, or it's a fish and it lives in water and there's very limited treatments you can provide. That can be very, very frustrating. But ultimately, you get to put on your creative hat and figure it out and hope for the best. And a lot of times it does work out for us.
Well, Jennifer, thanks for joining us today
Thank
to
you.
tell us a little bit about your job. I appreciate it.